My ungrateful sister married my brother-in-law, then publicly humiliated my wedding, not knowing we paid for hers. Your wedding was so cheap and tacky. If you had told me 5 years ago that my younger sister would become my worst nightmare, I would have laughed in your face. But here we are, neck deep in a family feud so outrageous that it could put a reality TV show to shame. Before we dive into this intense story, we have a small favor to ask. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. It's always incredible to see how far our stories reach. Thank you so much. Now let's dive in. Let's start from the beginning. I've been married to my husband Lucas for 5 years. We built a solid, stable life together. Nothing extravagant, but happy and secure. Then there's my sister Vanessa, who has always had an insatiable need to be the best at everything. It wasn't just a casual drive for success, it was an obsession. Growing up, Vanessa thrived on one-upping me. If I got an A, she needed an A+. If I bought a new outfit, she suddenly had 3. If I made a new friend, she was already best friends with someone way cooler. My parents used to laugh it off, calling it healthy sibling rivalry. I, on the other hand, was exhausted by it. I figured she'd outgrow it. She didn't. Instead, it evolved. As we got older, her competitiveness transformed into something more insidious. She wasn't just trying to be better, she needed everyone to know she was better. And the worst part? She had the charm and audacity to pull it off. Vanessa had an effortless way of making people feel both impressed and inadequate at the same time. She was beautiful, tall, striking, and always put together. She knew how to command a room with her confidence, and had a natural talent for making her life seem perfect to outsiders. She wanted admiration, attention, and, above all, envy. And when she started dating Lucas's younger brother, Dylan, it was like she had found the ultimate power move. 2 years ago, Vanessa met Dylan at one of our family barbecues. She spotted him from across the yard, turned on the charm, and within the hour, they were flirting like they were the only 2 people in the world. Dylan, to his credit, was a nice guy, charismatic, ambitious, and the kind of person who made everyone feel important. But he was also completely oblivious to Vanessa's need to dominate every aspect of life. Within months, they were inseparable. At first, I thought it was cute. Lucas was thrilled that our families were merging even further, but I had reservations. I had seen firsthand how Vanessa treated her relationships. To her, they were status symbols, accessories. I had a gut feeling that once the honeymoon phase wore off, she'd find a way to make Dylan's life all about her, and only her. Vanessa wasted no time inserting herself into every conversation, every comparison. "Wow, your house is so cozy. Dylan and I were thinking of something bigger, but this is cute." "Oh, Lucas is still at his old company. That's great. He's so loyal. Dylan is probably moving to an executive position soon." It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Every interaction was laced with the same message. "I'm winning and you're losing." I bit my tongue. This is just Vanessa being Vanessa, right? But over time, it became clear that her one-woman competition wasn't just a habit. It was a mission. 6 months ago, Vanessa and Dylan got engaged. She barely let me finish my congratulations before dismissing me with a wave. "Thanks, but we're doing something totally different from your wedding. No offense." I should have known then that this was about to be a disaster. Vanessa's wedding planning was like watching a high-budget Hollywood production come to life. She wanted grandeur. She wanted luxury. She wanted to put every wedding in our family's history to shame. And she made sure everyone knew it. "We're really trying to set a new standard for weddings in this family," she gushed at every family gathering. "It's going to be a real experience, not just a wedding." Translation: my wedding had been basic by comparison. The breakdown of Vanessa's dream wedding. The venue? A historic mansion that probably cost more than my house. The kind of place where royalty might have dined centuries ago. The dress. A custom-fitted designer gown from a European atelier, flown in from Paris because off the rack simply wasn't an option. The guest list. Over 250 people, including distant acquaintances who barely knew them but, in Vanessa's words, needed to witness this. The cake. A 5-tier masterpiece, flown in from a famous bakery in another state because local options just didn't meet her standards. The bachelorette parties. A weekend in Vegas, complete with VIP bottle service, a rented penthouse suite, and a personal concierge to cater to their every whim. She bragged about the details constantly, making it clear that this wedding was going to be the one that everyone remembered. What Vanessa didn't know, however, was that she and Dylan were in way over their heads. Dylan made a decent salary, but he was drowning in student loans. Vanessa had expensive tastes and zero income of her own. Yet, she planned this wedding as if money were infinite. Our parents and in-laws panicked. They loved Dylan and Vanessa, but they knew this wedding was an economic catastrophe waiting to happen. They had quiet, serious discussions about the financial burden, the long-term consequences, and the risk of the newlyweds starting their marriage in debt. And so, they made a decision. Lucas and I, along with both sets of parents, pooled our resources to help cover the costs, a significant amount, more than I was comfortable with, to be honest. But Vanessa? She thought Dylan was single-handedly footing the bill. She swooned to anyone who would listen about how lucky she was to have a fiancé who could give her the wedding of her dreams. She spoke about Dylan like he was some billionaire tycoon, showering her with riches. I let her have her fantasy. It wasn't worth correcting her, or so I thought. The closer we got to the wedding, the more unbearable Vanessa became. She demanded that all bridesmaids get custom-tailored dresses because off the rack would ruin the aesthetic. She threw a tantrum when a distant cousin RSVP'd no, because how could anyone miss the biggest event of the year? She insisted on a private fireworks display after the ceremony. Illegal in that area, by the way. She was a bridezilla on steroids. But the real disaster? That came at the wedding itself. The toast, the revelation, the aftermath. And Vanessa? She was about to learn the hard way that not every competition ends with her winning. The wedding day arrived like a scene from a movie, one of those big-budget Hollywood rom-coms where everything looks perfect on the surface but is seconds away from total disaster. The historic mansion was glowing in golden lights. The scent of imported flowers filled the air, and guests sipped on champagne so expensive I wouldn't be surprised if it had been hand-delivered by a vineyard owner in France. The music, the decor, the everything, Vanessa had outdone herself. But beneath the glitz and glamour, tension crackled like an impending thunderstorm. I knew something was going to happen. I just didn't know how bad it would be. For most of the reception, I kept my distance from Vanessa. She was basking in the attention, laughing loudly at every joke, glowing in her designer couture. Then came the toasts. Vanessa stood up, a dazzling smile on her face, and clinked her crystal glass. The chatter died down as all eyes turned toward her. "First of all, thank you all for being here on the most important day of my life," she began, her voice smooth and dripping with confidence. "Dylan and I are so lucky to be surrounded by such wonderful family and friends." I took a sip of my drink, trying to zone out. Then, not everyone is lucky enough to find a man who can give them everything they've ever dreamed of. I froze. Vanessa's eyes flickered in my direction. She wasn't done. "Some people settle, but I held out for the best." A horrified silence settled over the room. Even the band, which had been softly playing in the background, stopped. I could feel my face burning, my fingers clenched around my glass. Was she seriously implying what I thought she was? Lucas, sitting beside me, tensed. His jaw clenched so hard I thought he might shatter his molars. Beneath the table, he reached for my hand, squeezing it, a silent plea not to react. But before I could even process what had just happened, another voice rang out. "Actually," said Lucas's mother, calmly and deliberately as she rose from her seat. For months, Vanessa had strutted around, flaunting her lavish, once-in-a-lifetime wedding like it was a fairy tale come to life. She had bragged about Dylan's success, his generosity, and his ability to give her everything she ever wanted. But what Vanessa never realized was that Dylan couldn't afford any of it. The truth was simple. Vanessa believed that Dylan was footing the bill for this extravagant event, but he wasn't. He couldn't. Dylan had never corrected her assumptions because he knew the truth would shatter her fantasy. He had promised her the world, and when it became clear that he couldn't deliver on that promise, he turned to both families for help. Neither side wanted to see them start their marriage in financial ruin. So, after much discussion, our parents and in-laws quietly stepped in to cover the mounting costs. Lucas and I had even chipped in a significant amount, hoping to ease the burden. But there had been one condition. No one would tell Vanessa. "She's going to be crushed if she knows I can't afford this," Dylan had admitted to Lucas months ago. "She's always dreamed of a wedding like this. I don't want to disappoint her." The families had agreed to keep the truth hidden, not out of deceit, but out of damage control. They knew Vanessa's explosive personality, her need to project perfection. If she found out, there was no telling how she'd react. She might cancel the wedding out of pride, throw a tantrum, or worse, turn on Dylan. So, Dylan had simply let Vanessa believe the lie. And now, in front of 250 guests, the truth had been laid bare for everyone to see. Vanessa's reaction was immediate and visceral. Her entire body went stiff, her smile frozen in place as if her brain had just short-circuited. I didn't," she stammered, her eyes darting around the room. Her carefully crafted image was crumbling in real time. People were whispering. A couple of bridesmaids shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances. My great-aunt leaned over to another relative. Did she really not know? I mean, how could she not? Dylan, who had been deathly silent this entire time, finally reacted. He looked down at the table, his hand gripping his champagne flute so tightly I thought it might shatter. He cleared his throat, voice strained. We just wanted to make sure everything was perfect, he muttered, as if that explanation would magically smooth everything over. But Vanessa was not having it. She turned to him, eyes blazing. Her whisper was harsh, but loud enough that the surrounding tables could hear. "What the hell is she talking about?" she hissed. "You paid for everything, right?" Dylan hesitated. That 1 second of hesitation was all she needed. "Oh my God," her voice cracked. "Are you kidding me?" At this point, the entire ballroom was watching. The band, still frozen from their earlier interruption, had the sense to pick up their instruments and begin playing soft background music, as if they could somehow drown out the impending meltdown of the century. Vanessa turned back to Lucas's mother, furious. "Why would you say that?" she snapped. "Why would you try to embarrass me like this on my wedding day?" Lucas's mother was completely unfazed. She simply raised a brow and took a sip of her champagne. "Oh, sweetheart," she said coolly. "I was simply correcting a misunderstanding." The condescension in her voice was almost impressive. Vanessa was visibly shaking. Her entire world had just imploded in front of all her friends, extended family, and social circle. She turned back to Dylan, her voice rising. "You let me believe you were paying for this? You let me tell everyone that you could afford it, when the whole time you were just lying?" Dylan looked exhausted. He rubbed a hand down his face, clearly regretting every decision that had led him to this moment. "I didn't want to lie," he said. I didn't want to disappoint you." "Oh, so instead you let me make a complete fool of myself?" Vanessa's voice cracked with rage. At this point, some guests started getting up from their tables. A couple of distant relatives were pretending to go to the restroom just to get away from the scene. One of Vanessa's bridesmaids, a woman named Ashley, leaned over to whisper, Should we do something?" Another bridesmaid, clearly fed up with the drama, just shrugged and muttered, "She brought this on herself." Vanessa turned back to Lucas's mom, then me, then back to Dylan. She was wild-eyed, humiliated, and absolutely fuming. "You knew," she whispered at me, her voice trembling. "You knew, and you didn't tell me?" I took a slow sip of my drink before answering. "It was never my place to tell you." That did it. With a furious screech, Vanessa grabbed her bouquet and hurled it across the ballroom. The massive arrangement of white roses and orchids went flying, smacking one of the waiters squarely in the chest before toppling onto the floor. Gasps, more whispers, then silence. Lucas leaned over and muttered, "That's got to be some kind of bad omen, right?" I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. At this point, the wedding reception was beyond saving. People were avoiding eye contact, sipping their drinks awkwardly, trying not to be caught staring. Dylan looked defeated. Vanessa looked like she was about to spontaneously combust. Then, in true Vanessa fashion, she flipped her hair back, put on her best fake smile, and grabbed the microphone. "Well," she said, voice still shaking, "I think we've all had enough. Surprises for one night." A few weak chuckles from the crowd. "Let's get back to the party." She raised her glass in what was supposed to be a celebratory toast, but no one joined her. Even the DJ hesitated before finally turning the music back on. I turned to Lucas, keeping my voice low. "Do you think she's going to kill Dylan when they get home?" Lucas smirked. "Only if she doesn't kill my mom first." For the first few weeks after the wedding, Vanessa went into damage control mode. She doubled down on social media, posting over-the-top honeymoon photos with captions like, "Living our best life, nothing can ruin this happiness, #forever my king," as if trying to convince the world and herself that everything was perfect. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. Dylan, humiliated and exhausted, wasn't playing along. He stopped entertaining Vanessa's constant need for validation, and for the first time, cracks started forming in their relationship. A month after the wedding, Lucas got a text from Dylan. "Man, I don't know what I got myself into." Apparently, their first big fight had erupted the moment they got home from the wedding. Vanessa had demanded to know why he let her make a fool of herself. She blamed him for keeping the truth from her, accused him of ruining her image, and even threw a wine glass at the wall in frustration. Dylan had had enough. He told her bluntly, "You did this to yourself." From that point on, things only got worse. They lasted just over a year before Dylan filed for divorce. When the news got out, no one was surprised. Vanessa spun the narrative that Dylan had changed, and that he was intimidated by her success, which was ironic, considering she had no job and was living off her parents. But the truth? Dylan had finally woken up. He had spent their entire relationship trying to impress her, trying to prove he was enough, but he was done playing that game. If anything, this whole disaster brought Lucas and me even closer. We laughed about it, we vented about it, and most importantly, we moved on. For a while, people kept bringing up the wedding at family gatherings, but eventually, it faded into legend. The kind of story that got told with a shake of the head and a, "Can you believe that actually happened?" I never reached out to Vanessa, and she never reached out to me. And honestly, I was okay with that. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more stories like this.